This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Rock and Roll Denim, Bill Fick Ford, the WCRA, and Resistol. Guys, another year has ticked by, challenging year, but there was somebody you could rely on if you needed a new Super Duty pickup, and that was Bill Fick Ford. Once again, the #1 Super Duty dealer in the entire country. You guys have seen what's going on in the car business, in the truck business. You're seeing trucks being sold for thousands above MSRP. Well, if you go to Bill Fick Ford, it doesn't matter where you are at in the continental U.S. He will take care of you. He will stand by the product, and he will not take advantage of you. Guys, Bill Fick Ford is the only place you can go in 2022 for a no-bull discount. Bill Fick Ford. Guys, it's that time again. Rodeo Corpus Christi will be one of the largest paying rodeos of the entire year. That's $550,000 with more than $50,000 promised per discipline, with no entry fees. Rodeo Corpus Christi will be the first stop of the WCRA's Triple Crown of Rodeo. The only way to qualify for Rodeo Corpus Christi is by nominating your rides or runs with the WCRA. You can win $1 million by nominating your rides and runs and earning points with the WCRA. Through the Triple Crown of Rodeo, the WCRA will award $1 million in cash prizes to any one athlete or collection of athletes who place first at any 3 consecutive WCRA major rodeos. The WCRA has awarded more than $10.8 million to athletes in a little more than 2 years. Come on, guys. To learn more, just visit WCRArodeo.com and learn how you can earn a spot at Rodeo Corpus Christi and possibly be Rodeo's next millionaire. Boom.
What sets Resistol apart is the legacy of the cowboys who wear the brand. These traditions are passed down from fathers to sons, from heroes to future champions. Since 1927, Resistol has been handcrafting the finest American-made cowboy hats. Generation after generation, we live it every day.
This is The Gauge with host Chance Conradu.
Are you freaking serious? It's Conrado. This is The Gauge, and I am Chance Conrado. On this episode of the podcast, we have got the brilliant and talented Ja'Dayia Kursh. We are talking about diversity in the Western industry, actually in the country as a whole. She is so well-spoken, so brilliant, so passionate about what she's talking about, and we felt like the best thing we could do this February is give her a seat at the table and let her express her message. And I feel very honored to have got to sit here with her, have a dialogue with her, and I encourage everybody to listen to what she has to say. Check it out. All right. Well, thank you for joining us. You had to. How long did it take you to get here from Fort Smith? Like 5 hours?
Like 4.5.
4.5?
Yeah, about 4.5 hours.
Yeah.
Not too bad.
Not bad, but also not like a fun, scenic route.
It's not horrible, though. I take the drive a lot, so it's not terrible. I mean, actually, there's not a lot to see at all. It is kind of boring. Mm-hmm. There's not much.
No, it isn't. Well, we're really excited that you're here, and you have a very interesting and kind of an inspirational, am I saying kind of, a very inspirational story, and you're doing a lot of really unique and amazing things, and it's funny how kind of this, and I'm really interested to hear your opinion on like the Western culture, what drew you to it, because what it sounded like to me at least is you didn't come from a Western background at all. Mm-hmm. You decided you wanted to be in it. And so if you could kind of just give us a little introduction on yourself, and we can kind of build from there.
Okay, well, thank you for having me. I'm so blessed to be here, but just to hop into that, I didn't come from like a Western background at all. My mom, she grew up in Fort Smith, Arkansas. They're very city people. My dad, he's from Flint, Michigan. He's still in prison. He's been in prison my whole life, and my mom had me when she was 15, so I didn't really come from the best circumstances, but like I always tell people, statistically, I shouldn't be half the woman I am today, so I've just kind of allowed horses to be my freedom always. There was this woman that introduced me to horses when I was 6 years old, and I always say that she set me in a saddle that day and she handed me the reins to my freedom, and I've been riding horses ever since. And so I just kind of allowed that love that I have for horses didn't even know there was an industry for me to come compete in when I knew that I loved horses and that how much, they changed my life. So.
Yeah. Well, and that's, it's kind of one of those things where you have a choice, and maybe some people don't realize the choices you have, and your background at least determines your starting point. Right. Mm-hmm. But you get to choose, like, if you want to join something like the Western industry. And, I think it's amazing that you chose that of your own volition. It's not like somebody put it on you. Mm-hmm. It's like you saw this horse and you're like, wow, this is amazing. Mm-hmm. And then you've built your life around it. I think, and I'm sure we'll get into all that, but mm-hmm. you're really wanting to stay in this industry, right? Like mm-hmm. as your landing place.
You know what? Like, I learned when I was 18 years old, I'd stopped drill teaming. I went through a lot just to be able to proudly say, I'm the first Black rodeo queen in Arkansas. I went through a lot of racism just to be half the woman that I am today. So I always tell people, like, whenever I got into rodeo and everything that I went through, I didn't know, like, exactly what I wanted to do or where I wanted to go with this, or, so whenever I did the Old Fort Days Dandies and I was done with it when I got to freshman year of college, I sold everything that I had Western. I sold all my cowboy boots. I sold a saddle that I won when I won my first rodeo queen competition that I still can't find till this day, because I was like, I will never do rodeo again. I'll never be in that industry again, because, the same arena that I found that love for this industry in was the same arena that I lost the love for the industry because of everything that I went through. And, I learned real quick, you cannot change who you are. Like, I'm a cowgirl. I'm a rodeo queen. I'm a voice for Black cowgirls in this industry. And the moment I tried to change that about myself, when I tried to run from it, like, I missed it the whole time. Like, there was nothing about the industry that I didn't miss whenever I thought I was going to quit it. You can't quit who you are.
No, you can't. And I don't know how comfortable you are talking about some of that stuff, but I think, here's what I think, is the way to give somebody the most value, like in a situation like this, is to even talk about some of the uncomfortable things maybe, mm-hmm. because you never know who's going to hear it and what it might do for them. Mm-hmm. And I think that the fact that you went through something that, let's be real, at least in this industry, you don't think about it. Mm-hmm. You wouldn't. And it's one of those topics, especially nowadays, you know this better than anybody. Mm-hmm. It's hard to talk about, right? Mm-hmm. But if you went through something like that and you're comfortable sharing, just a synopsis of what that was like for you, how you persevered through it, and why you hit that breaking point where you were like, I'm out. Mm-hmm. I'm done with this bullshit. Mm-hmm. It would be amazing, I think, and probably the most insightful thing that we mm-hmm. could do right now is talk about that and then build off of it, maybe.
Of course. I always like to say that the only thing that separates, because I am a Black woman in this industry, and that makes it is a big deal because of the lack of representation. When I was a 6-year-old little girl starting riding horses, I would have thought I was the only Black girl doing it because there was no representation. Like, there was no pictures in the magazines. There was no advertisement about it. So, I always think, I went through a lot to get to where I'm at, and I think it all started with dandies. I honestly I'd never experienced racism until I was a rodeo ambassador for the Old Fort Days Dandies. I was the second Black woman to make the team since the 1990s. So, and I was on a team with 19 other women. Not women. We were between the ages of 15 and 19 years old, and then we aged out. And so whenever things started on there, it wasn't even the girls that I was experienced the racism from. It was the parents. I came into the Old Fort Days Dandies being just as good as those girls that had been on the team for 4 and 5 years, riding in the positions that we were practicing in first gent, second gent positions that some of the girls that had been on the team for 4 and 5 years weren't even riding in. So, I didn't realize that it was building animosity or anything, but I'm 16 years old at the time. I'm not thinking that there's adults jealous of me, but there was a group message going around and there was ugly things being said about me in it. And my coach didn't tell me. It had went on for like a month, and one of the girls came up and talked to me about it. And they were like, "Did you hear about this?" And I didn't know what was going on, and I actually went up to my coach and I was like, "Hey, like, what is going on? What is this group message that I'm hearing about that, the N-words being used regarding me and all these things?" And
wow.
My coach knew about it, and she told me, she was like, "I didn't bring it to you because I wanted to handle it myself. I wanted to nip it in the butt." And I was like, "But you didn't handle it, because now it is coming to me, and it's not just coming to me. It's coming to me from people, like, these were a group of girls, 19 of us, that called each other dandy sisters. Like, these are girls that I've seen as friends. I had no reason to go into these relationships with these girls other than full-heartedly with my whole heart and be friends and think that we're going to build real relationships, because that's what I went in that thinking that I was going to have with these girls. And so when I got down to the bottom of what was really going on, and I'd read the group messages, I'd quit the team. I told my coach, I was like, I'm not going to be a part of your team anymore. I'm turning everything in. I won't ever bring another one of my horses to this arena or anything. And she did. She begged me to stay on the team. And I told her the only way that I would stay on the team is if I could have a meeting with all 19 of the girls and all of their parents. And that following Sunday after our Thursday practice, we had a mandatory meeting. I'm 16. I typed up what I wanted to say to the parents, and she revised it twice, and the rodeo board, they come down and everybody stood beside me, and I stood up in front of, like 40 parents, and I let them know that I knew the hostility towards me, the way that they felt towards me was so much deeper than me being a good rider. Like, I was letting them know, I know that you don't like me because of the color of my skin, and that was enough for me to want to quit back then. I'm young. I didn't know how to deal with it, but me continuing, like, I'd let it be known in that speech that, I'm here to stay whether you like it or not, And my coach never told me, I went outside, I said the same speech to all 19 of their daughters. And after I got done talking, it was 2 girls dismounted from their horses crying. I was so confused. And then, so I go outside of the arena. I'm worked up. I started crying after this, of course. And one of the moms of the girls that dismounted from her horses was outside in the rodeo board. She was arguing with the president. And I could hear them saying, if you keep this up, you're going to be banned from the rodeos and everything. And I'm still not putting, and after that, everything that had happened, I'd put it together. I was like, she never told me who the 3 people were that were talking about me. After I stood up in front of those people and said my piece to them, they showed me who they were. She never had to tell me everybody that was talking about me. It was disgusting, and you'd think I'd have to do something to someone, and that was the first time I ever experienced racism in this industry, and it was a lot. It was a lot.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably one of the most disappointing things for like people in the Western industry who, I mean, it might sound cliche or whatever, but I mean, it's just not, that would never be a thought in my head or a lot of people. I mean, gosh, I've roped with some really great friends. I mean, you know who they are. Mm-hmm. You know Corey, right, who these people are. Mm-hmm. I mean, my biggest hero is Fred Whitfield. Right. Tie-down roper. Every kid who swings mm-hmm. a tie-down rope is like, that's the freaking guy. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And like his legendary battles with Cody Ole, he'll be here in 2 days. But I mean, it's just not a thing. And before having heard what you said, anybody could walk through this door and they would say, do you think that the Western industry is an industry where people are racist? Mm-hmm. And I would say, no. In fact, I've never seen it. And you even said you hadn't seen it mm-hmm. until that point. But the most amazing thing to me, and it shows now that you're still that same woman, but you weren't scared mm-hmm. to get up in front of there and defend yourself. Mm-hmm. And that's a really admirable trait, because you didn't know who these people were, and you had the courage to stand up there and call them out for what they did. And most mm-hmm. people don't have the balls for that. So mm-hmm. that's amazing, and I applaud you for that. And shame on them. I mean,
it's okay. No shame on them. I like to look at it like this. If I could have handled that situation instead of getting upset whenever I was going through all of that, and the woman that I am now, the things that I know now, oh my goodness, those same girls want to be my friend these days. They message me these days. They send me the pictures that we took when we were, friends on this team. Man, those people helped build me. They prepared me for everything that I'm going through, everything that I'm set up to do right now. They were a huge part of my story, but an even bigger part of my success. Had they not treated me like that, had I not went through that adversity, I wouldn't be the woman that I am. So I'm very thankful for everything. It was a lesson, and I always like to think, like, if you're going through life and you're going through a bunch of things and you're not learning from them, you went through them for no reason. And they taught me so many lessons, even, the ugly truths that I didn't want to know. They taught me so many things that I needed to know that are so vital to the person that I am.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think so. I mean, could you think of anybody that like, no matter who they are, what they do, Do you know anybody who did anything amazing who didn't have to go through extreme adversity? I don't.
Oh no, not at all.
And I mean, and that transcends race and religion and where you live on the globe. Find me one person who achieved anything amazing who didn't have to go through adversity, right?
Exactly. I think that's what, I always say that's what kept me going. The fact that I could make so many people mad just doing what I want to do. Like I always tell people, I went to my first rodeo queen pageant. People always like, do you love it? I love it. I really do. But I've never experienced what I experienced, the fun of just doing the sport whenever I went to that first pageant. Like I was just having fun. I even know I was making history. I was just having fun, you know? So it's just like, for me, it's the love for the industry. And of course you're going to go through terrible things. And, and unfortunately some things that I go through is racism. And it's the reason I keep talking about it. It's the reason, I have people, Western influencers, that's what people call me these days, but that I would consider associates. That's what we all are. We're friends on social media. That think that my voice is too loud. I've been being gaslight by some people, that people look up to in this industry just because I'm speaking up about diversity. And I'm just like, how could something that is so simple, something that effortlessly to do, how is me speaking about something that you can go to these people that I'm bringing it to their attention, you can go through these brands' pages and see the lack thereof. And what is me speaking about something if I openly let you have your opinion about this? If I don't comment because I know how to go through something, if I see something that I don't agree with about you, instead of tearing you down, I'm going to scroll past it, because our friendship to me is so much more important than the way that your different opinions of mine, that's an opinion that you have. So for me, my opinion is that diversity is important. And it, I don't care how you feel about that. It is what it is. It's important to me. It's something that I'm going to speak about. But for me, it just shows the racism that still exists in you, that if I can bring up something and it's so simple as someone's skin color or bringing up the fact that there needs to be more representation, because there's little girls like me. When I was younger, I didn't see it. So it was like, I didn't, it's crazy to think that I was recognized in 2019 as the first Black rodeo queen. Rodeo queens have been around since rodeo started. Why is it that I'm one of there's two, the other girl that she was on a state title. So for me, it's so important. And, I think back to what you said, sorry, I can talk a lot, so you just have to take over sometimes.
This is a show that is all about you talking.
Right. And so you'd said, you were like, if someone was to walk into here and ask you, is the Western industry have racist people in it? And I don't even think of it in that way as racist people. I think they're uneducated, unfortunately. But I would say, when you said that, I could give you the perfect example that I was actually able to give a lot of state queens a few years ago. And, they were like, the Western industry is so diverse. And it is. We have Brazilian cowboys, Canadian, from different countries. And it's so crazy to think how easily they can be embraced, but you still can't embrace Black people, but it's like, I think I was able to give them this example, and they're like, so I was like, I have 17 adult women sitting in front of me, and I'm like, so to you guys, the Western industry is so diverse, and I get that, and I respect that. And I was like, you guys have been competing at rodeo queen pageants since you were little girls, right? Some of you even started when you were 3, 4, and 5 years old. And they're like, yeah. I was like, and some of y'all are 25 and 26 years old in this room, right? Yeah. They're like, yeah, and I was like, so I want any of y'all, raise y'all's hand, just raise your hand. I was like, when have you went to a rodeo queen pageant and you sat in front of one of your 3 or 4 judges and one of them was a person of color? And it was quiet, just like this.
I'm sure. Now, I can't raise my hand because I've never been to a rodeo queen pageant.
But, and that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But, it's just so it's just little things like that. You think the whole industry is diverse when they won't even put people that don't look like you in front of you?
Well, and somebody may use the argument that, well, maybe there's just not that many people of color who want to do it. Well, that's not true. Look at the Compton Cowboys. Mm-hmm. I mean, look at Randy and his crew. I mean, I love those guys. They've been here before, and everybody would do it if they had access to it. Yeah. And that's why I love that group, because they're giving access. You would never think Compton and think that there's an outlet for kids to go in those areas. I mean, because if you live in Compton, you're just like what you said, and this is the sad truth, and I don't think a lot of people would want to, especially here, it's the one of those out of sight, out of mind thing, which I think maybe in the Western industry that's a lot to do with it, right? It's just completely and totally foreign and out of sight and out of mind because there's not as much access for people of color. And go
Can I
ahead.
say this? Sorry.
Please.
I always like to tell people, like, because, you know, I talk about diversity a lot, unfortunately. I want to just rodeo queen. I want to just be able to ride horses and do what I love. But unfortunately, if I'm not talking about it, nobody else is. It's just like the only thing that separates, especially black women, but the only thing that separates black women from everybody else is opportunity. We just don't get the opportunities. I don't get the opportunities. You know, when it comes to like, you know, me, I've just had a girl disagree with some of the things that I was saying when I'm speaking up about Cavenders that I'd been talking about over the past 2 weeks, back and forth with them. And she was like, oh, well, you just need to work harder. Baby girl, I'm working just as hard as you. You know, I'm working just as hard as you. And Cowgirls Magazine will post you 3 times a week, but they'll wait 10 posts before they'll post a person of color. My work, the people that I work with, the photographers that I worked with, we're top tier. Don't try to belittle me and make me think that I need to work harder. We just do not have the same opportunities. And that's just what it is. It's plain and simple. And so for me, I have to create these opportunities. I have to make sure that this isn't something that my daughters, because I'm going to have black daughters, is talking about. This isn't something that they should still be talking about. So, you know, I have to be the voice to make sure that this is something that can become normal.
Yeah, I mean, and that prompts so many questions, but I think of, and it doesn't matter if you agree or disagree with this particular person I'm going to bring up or if you care, but look at Candace Owens is a good example. It doesn't matter what your opinion of her politics are. It doesn't. If you don't agree with what she says, not the point.
Of course.
The point is she has had to work so hard and be just viciously attacked from all sides, the ones who disagree and even some that agree with her because she's a black woman speaking out against, you know, what she seems to think are the injustices in the world. And again, it doesn't matter. I have no idea what your beliefs are with her, but she's a great example. And I think that the only way that change can happen is it's got to be out. It's got to be exposed. It's not a great word. Exposed is like kind of like that's a word people don't like, but it does have to be. And just because this whole group of people don't think it's a problem,
right,
because they don't see it, doesn't mean it isn't. And you just have to really open up your heart and hear people out.
Exactly.
You wouldn't be wasting your time if you didn't think it was worthwhile. And I think you have to look at it that way. It's like, well, why would Ja'Dayia be talking about it if it wasn't important? She wouldn't. She'd go do something else. She'd go finish her law degree and go play in New York or do something else. But she's not, which means if it's important to her, it's important to a lot of other people.
Yeah. You know, I always try to remind people some of the only reason that I speak out about things or bring things to attention is because of the messages that I get. You know, and I'm sitting here thinking, you know, I always say, you know, I have such a small voice, like to me, like, but you never know who your voice is reaching, whether you think you have a small voice or a big voice, or you never know who you're talking to. And I have like, it shocked the heck out of me. I'm sitting here talking about a situation that I'd went through that some of my followers on TikTok had addressed how they had felt walking into one of the Western stores. And then I just so happened to have a bad experience with this same brand and I posted about it. And then, you know, one of our, you know, world champions, you know, someone that makes millions of dollars for our industry, I had one of his siblings contact me and let me know that she's had the same kind of situations where she's been racially discriminated. Like, come on now. Like, if there's no respect for me, what are we really working towards? You know, if we can't have respect for people that can go out here and make millions of dollars for our industry, you know, be like, and they're scared to speak up about some of the things that they go through. I have to. For some reason, I feel like it's no longer an option or something that, like, I'm going to talk about it sometimes. No, it's important and I'm going to keep talking about it. And I'm going to keep talking about it until it's understood because there's just as many black athletes in this industry as there is white athletes in this industry. Like I said, we just don't have the same opportunities.
And it's geographical, right? You go to certain places and you see it more, but if you don't go there, you don't. Like, I'm sorry, but like, and I'm going to be blunt, the white family in Kansas doesn't realize how many black tie-down ropers are down in Houston. It's a whole nother culture and it's badass. And those dudes will spank your ass if you don't come to play. I mean, it's just the truth. Yeah. And it's amazing because this industry of all industries has one thing that unites it that maybe some of the other parts of the world don't, but it's the horse. The horse has no idea that there's a different tone of your skin or mind. They have no clue. They don't know. They embrace you the same. They perform for you just the same. So just based on that principle alone, you know, and there's these great ambassadors. Look at Derek Begay for the Native American culture, and there's tons of Brazilians, and you know, there are great ambassadors for people of color, like Shad, like Corey. They're amazing guys. You wouldn't know the difference between them and anybody else. But the thing about you is that you have a very interesting background, right? And if you follow statistics. You've got probably the harshest statistic for the Black community. I mean, and that is the number one statistic that determines people's success in their starting point. And you're a prime example. You have the stereotypical beginning. And would you be willing to talk kind of about that, what that stereotype and reality it was for you, what that does and how that sets you up? Because I think it's such an important thing, because if you're not this amazing, strong-willed person like you are, because you have to know this about yourself by now, like you're not a normal, and that has nothing to do with race or creed or anything. Certain people are built different for their tolerance, and you were lucky enough to be built that way so you could get out of that. But most human beings, no matter what the color, they need a good starting place because they just can't mentally get there. So would you be willing to talk about kind of that a little bit?
Of course. I like to think sometimes people have this impression that, I don't know, I'm just going to say it, Black people are dumb, just the same way that I know brands will not use Black ambassadors or representatives because they think Black people don't spend money with them. There's that narrative that, and just, I always say, just like every white person isn't racist, every Black person isn't dumb, and so I could say that to say this, some street-oriented individuals are some of the most intelligent people I've ever met in my life. I was raised by them. My dad, from Flint, Michigan. If you can Google anything about Flint, Michigan, it's terrible. The way that my dad grew up. My dad got his first sack of cocaine and a pistol when he was 13 from his mom. And so many people think they're like, oh, you choose this, you choose to get caught up in this and caught up in the system and caught up. No, some of them, it's not really a choice. It's life or death, like for real. And that's what it is. So has been for my mom, my dad, everybody around me, and I always tell people, they're like, how do you have this story and this and that? And I always say, I grew up around everything I knew I didn't want to be like in life. I literally did. And so my dad, my grandma, my dad and her, they hustled together. Like my grandma was a drug dealer. My dad was a drug dealer. My mom's mom, whenever I was born, when my mom had me when she was 15, my grandma was in prison. My grandma was addicted to crack cocaine my whole life up until 4 years ago. When she first lost her legs, she's diabetic, and she lost her legs, and that was the first time, like the first year when she stopped walking, it was hard for me to go see her because I didn't know who she was. Like, I'd never seen my grandma sober. Like, that's how growing up, but that was my normal. I loved her that way. Like, so when she wasn't high on crack, I was like, what is wrong? Like, what's wrong with you? Like, I want my grandma back, So it's just like, oh, for me, I didn't grow up, like I didn't come from the Western industry, but whenever I was introduced to horses, like I say, I was set in that saddle and I was handed the reins to my freedom, like it kind of just became horses. Horses were that relief for me. They were like everything that I wanted to be a part of, because I was introduced to horses because I was sexually assaulted and I was going to counseling, and I'd been going to counseling for about two or 3 months, and she actually invited us to her house. I don't think back in 2006 they were calling horse therapy and all that horse therapy, Wow. But so she introduced me to this horse, and she was like, this is a 1,500-pound animal. I'm a depressed 6-year-old going, my dad just got his first 13-year sentence when I was 5. So, he'd just gone away at that time. And
so all this happened to you between the ages of like 4 and like 7? Is that?
I was sexually assaulted when I was 6. My dad went to prison when I was 5, but that was the second time. No, he was in there from when I was 1 to like 3. He'd went in there for a brief time, and that was all. Yeah, that was my.
I mean, anybody out there who has a 5 or 6 or 7 all the way up to 10-year-old kid, the effects that has on someone's mind and their self-worth. I mean, I can't even imagine what you must have been feeling like at that age.
Oh yeah.
And so you went from that, and someone said, like, how did you get to the quote unquote horse therapy thing? Was that your mom? Was that somebody approached you guys? How did that happen?
Well, whenever I was sexually assaulted, that was one of the things that was recommended was for me to get in counseling. And, so I got into counseling, and that's where I had met Miss Kathy, and that's the woman that introduced me to horses. And so she had told me, she was like, this is a 1,500-pound animal. And she was like, if you can control this animal, you can control anything that comes your way. And I had just been riding horses ever since. I feel like they did give me that, like, that confidence. This is a powerful animal, and, like, I have control of it. And so I feel like just being that young and being able to love something, like, I feel like that's what it was more than anything was, like, it was hard for me to always feel like loved, I feel like. So I found that love, like everything that I went through that was bad and negative, like horses just was always that positive, that reassuring thing for me. And so it became that for me very, very young. I feel like they taught me a lot about myself, everything that I was capable of doing. That all come from a horse.
Guys, Rock and Roll Denim has absolutely changed the game when it comes to the performance and style in Western jeans. Top competitors like Shad, Tim O'Connell, Shelly Morgan, you name it. Your boy right here, we're all wearing Rock and Roll Denim. Inside and outside of the arena, it gives you the flexibility you need to win, as well as looking absolutely great in your interviews, appearances, whatever it is you're doing. Even when you're just doing podcasts like me. I had a chance to go to Rock and Roll Denim's factory the other day and pick out all the pants I wanted. Here's the thing. I got to try on a bunch of their new jeans. I love the men's Revolver jeans with the reflex stretch technology because they're comfy. They're not stiff like some of the other jeans. Go check them out at rockandrolldenim.com or follow Rock and Roll Denim on Facebook and Instagram for the newest trends in Western fashion. rockandrolldenim.com. Pederson Natural Farms is a group of real people making real food who collectively strive to uphold their values: honesty, integrity, and of course, good stewardship. It's those core values and priorities that are the very heartbeat of this company. Pederson Natural Farms is more than just a company that creates natural, healthy, quality proteins. They work to ensure everyone has access to good, wholesome foods through their partnership with Feeding America. No matter what you look like, what you believe, the struggles you have, how you identify, or who you love, they support you and your tribe. And, of course, they celebrate members of all communities. Pederson Natural Farms gives you what you deserve and, of course, what you want out of your proteins. Authentic, natural, and healthy raised proteins distributed by a company you can feel good about doing business with. Visit them at pedersonfarms.com. Again, that's pedersonfarms.com. And you're going to buy the bacon. You buy bacon anyway, so use our discount code, TheGauge10, at checkout. pedersonfarms.com. What was your mom like? I mean, I can't imagine everything you're saying. It sounds like your mom really probably tried her best, like a lot of mothers do. I mean, so that's another stereotype in the Black community. If you follow those stereotypes, which everyone should, if I'm going to sit here and talk to you about this, I better be freaking educated on what we're talking about. And I think probably the mothers in the Black community might be the most underrated people in this entire country because I mean, I've got other friends who have similar stories to yours, not in the Western industry, but it's the same deal. Well, mom worked 3 jobs just to try to do whatever she could, try to, if you're, you know, a male, keep us off the streets, these different things. And it also speaks just the power of women and specifically women of color. But I imagine your mom tried her absolute best to try to help you.
Oh yeah, she's very, very much a part of my story. Very powerful. You know, she was young. You know, so I grew up with her, and I feel like that's plays a lot in like. You know, people always tell me like I'm 22, but they're like I would never think that you were your age if you wouldn't tell me that. So
no, you could tell me you're 30 and be like, well, you don't look it, but
yeah.
I mean, you speak so intelligently.
Well, thank you. And so you know, my mom, I feel like she put us in like the schools. We went to school with the white kids, you know, she grew up on the north side. She tried to raise us on the south side of town, you know. So for me, it was like getting the best of both worlds. I went to school with the white kids, hung out with the Black kids on the weekend. Like I was on the, you know, with my people. And for me, it was like being able to, I don't know. As I got older, it was a lot more difficult, but I understand why my mom did what she did. Of course, I feel like being able to go to schools with, I don't know. I feel like being able to go to schools with white kids is a lot of the reason that I was able to go to school with people that, you know, of course they had more than me. I signed myself up to go to private school when I was 13. I didn't have no money to do it, but they didn't have no Black kids. So I was able to go to school there. They gave us me and my brother paid our tuition because they needed the diversity. You know, every time there was something where they needed a few kids to do pictures for the school, I was one that they'd come and pick. So it was a win-win for both of us. And so I did feel like whenever I went to school, like I don't know, I just paid attention to things, you know, growing up with the grandma that my mom was raised by, you know, a woman that was addicted to crack most of her life. So like, of course she didn't always know the best things or have the best advice, but I feel like we teach each other now more than anything. And like everything that she didn't have and didn't grow up with, if she wasn't able to give it to us, she reminded us, like, it's something that you can choose to have. And I feel like seeing what my mom was raised, like seeing how my grandma was growing up, even, you know, being addicted to crack up until I was in my 20s, and like knowing that my mom was raised by that, and just seeing how strong she was, and to not, like, that is powerful for me, to know that you come from an abusive, alcoholic mom and someone that's addicted to crack cocaine, and you chose, like, my mom doesn't drink alcohol like that. She doesn't do any drugs. Like, so it was that, just, I feel like she played a big part in showing me the things that I was also able to not have to follow.
Yeah. Well, and I think that might be a key thing that's so important in your story is, from your mom to you guys didn't have the start that you needed, or anyone needed, to have it, at least a good opportunity. But you guys had the fortitude to give yourself those opportunities. And I think that's why it's so amazing that you're speaking up against it, as far as racism goes, and whatever else you're speaking for, because I think that's the only way you can change something. Because if you look at the statistics and the studies in regards to the inner city Black communities, all we see is what hasn't worked. Nothing. And like I said, whether you agree with a Candace Owens figure or not, she speaks a lot of these facts. And what you're seeing is it takes people like you doing selfless things just like you're doing, being confident enough in yourself to speak out against things, because that's really hard. I can't imagine how hard it was for you the first time you did that. It's probably easier now, but that's a heavy burden for anybody to carry.
Yeah.
And I don't see another way, from just this conversation we're having, the things that I'm interested in, the people that I look at to try to get information, to be competent enough to have these conversations with people like you, because you're way smarter than me. But I think the key, and again, this is just an opinion, but is people like you sacrificing a lot. I just don't see any other way, and I'm sure that's why you're doing it, because you probably don't see another way either.
Right. Yeah, for me it is. I do sacrifice a lot. You know, every time I speak up about another brand, how I was treated, or, you know, the lack of diversity, I'm risking another partnership with someone. I'm risking so many things just to speak up about something, like I said, that is so easy, that could be done so effortlessly. The more time I spend sending emails about diversity, it takes less time just to be diverse, you know? So, and I sacrifice a lot, but I feel like for me, if I don't speak up about it, like, I always like to think, I don't know, I love looking into just the way things were changed, how, you know, I like to use my words, and I like to think that I could just, you know, I'm going to send this email, I'm going to be nice about it. And maybe they'll listen or consider some of the things that I'm saying, you know. So understand, if I'm making a video or I'm speaking about it publicly, I've tried everything could do privately to get you to, you know, at least acknowledge the fact that there are people of color in this industry. And so for me, I always think that, like, I can just, you know, Malcolm X, he was very radical, very, very radical, but he would always, there was one of his speeches that he'd gave. He was like, you know, if I can be the one that is, like, if I can be the one that pushes brands, pushes this industry towards diversity, because they listen to me. These people, I mean, Cavender's, that's the brand that I've been going back and forth with for a little bit the past week, just because they lack diversity. They abuse, to me, they have colorism all over their page. They use models that are Hispanic, but they only use ones that, you know, look like they're white. You know, it's like, and whenever you're a woman of color, these are things that, unfortunately, I'm raised to know these things. I'm raised to pay attention to these things. And so it's just like, because it's something that the same adversities that I face, you know, brands would rather use, if they're going to open up to diversity or try to get their feet wet, they're going to use a girl that's lighter than me. Of course, you know, I'm a dark-skinned Black woman. That's the first thing people say to me whenever if it's a person of color, that's one thing I hear all the time. They're like, I love what you're doing in this industry. I love that you're a Black woman doing it, but more than anything, I love that you're a dark-skinned Black woman, because dark-skinned Black women just lack that representation so much, because we are dark-skinned. And so it's just, for me, it's just like, I have to speak up about it. But more than anything, it's just like, I don't know. I think there's just this narrative, and there's this, you know, the more that I don't talk about it, the more the people that have the voice and could be making a difference and could diversify their feed so someone else could do it or could bring that representation, like the more that I don't speak up about it, the more it's not going to happen. And it's like, these are the same brands that represent these rodeo organizations. These are the same brands that another Black woman's going to go compete at a pageant, and these are the brands that represent that pageant, that organization. Some of these brands I talk like have had to be nice and then be rude to, and it's not even rude. I hate that I even have to think about me speaking up about diversity as rude, but this is my perception of it, because people, to racists and to people that are uneducated, when I speak up about diversity and inclusion, they feel like I'm attacking them, but it's like, the more that I don't speak up about it, the more comfortable you're going to get with the fact that it's not there. And just that's how much more harder it's going to be to even push forth, bringing that representation. So I always say, like, if I can be the one that, I have to, shake you a little bit, I have to pull your teeth a little bit, then maybe I can push you towards working with another woman of color. Even if I'm not the one that you want to work with, I can make sure that, if I'm ruffling your feathers, I'm going to ruffle your feathers enough for you to go work with a woman of color.
Yeah, no, I understand. To flip it just a little bit, what are some of the positive things you've seen? Like, I have to imagine, like, these are some negative experiences, but I think out of them, you've had to have had some real positive ones. Yeah. Brands reach out to you and be like, we want to work with you. Love what you're doing. I mean, that's the reason I didn't, Riley knew, but I didn't know anything about you until she showed me the video. And I was like, get her in here. Like, this is an amazing topic. What better time to talk about it than now? And, let's give her the if they're not going to, we are. Get in here and let's talk about this and see if we can help your cause. And it's not your cause. It should be everybody's cause. Because if we don't break down these barriers, just as a society or an industry, something that simple, can we do anything good? That's nothing. Right. Or it shouldn't be, right? Right. You wouldn't think.
It's effortless.
Yeah.
It takes less time.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like to think, and you'd mentioned positive. Yes. Oh my goodness. I just mentioned that. Like, if I get that message all the time sometimes from brands they're like, how can we be more diverse? Or if I bring it up to their attention, they're like, what can we do? And for me, if I can't explain it to you, I do. Wrangler is a brand that I feel like, I mentioned diversity to them one time, and literally, like, it's been everything about that since then. And I think that is so important. And I feel like more than anything, it's earned them so much more respect and credibility. Like I said, people in this industry, I feel like some brands, the reason they lack diversity is because they feel like the people buying from them are not people of color, but they are. Like, so many Black women wear Wranglers, so many Black men, so many Hispanics, so many different people, so many indigenous people, that I feel like, if you don't represent those people, I'm gonna have to mention it. I'm sorry. I see people of color spending all this money, wanting to be recognized by this brand, and you wouldn't spend a dime on a model that looked like them. So more than anything, I feel like Wrangler is one brand that, I can use prime example. I went to they had a 75th birthday party in Dallas. I think it was like 3 weeks ago. And of course, majority of the people at the party were white, of course, But when I tell you majority of their staff were people of color, like, it made me feel so good, because I'm one of probably the 15 people here that are Black people. But, like, to know that, like, it just feels good. It feels good to be in a place and, like, know that this is a brand that I spend my money with, and they're willing to spend money on people like me too, And I feel like I feel like if you want to take change or want to know a brand that you could really look to and, be like, okay, like, how can I bring more diversity? There's someone definitely to look into.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I probably wouldn't normally ask this question, but you are ridiculously smart and you're very, very well educated and continuing your education. But if someone were to hand over the reins of the entire Black community to you, what would you do? Like, how would you, Ja'Dayia, if you had the power or the time, is another thing, to affect change for the entire community, what would you do? How would you approach something like that? I know it's a huge question, probably not a fair ask, but I'm just like, okay, she's smart, she's got this. What would you do? Because, this is not a new topic, and it just doesn't seem to want to go away no matter, as far as politicians go, they can't do anything. They won't for whatever reason. But if you could just snap your fingers and you could create this whole plan that helped the Black community, not just rodeo, but in general, what would that look like?
To help the Black community.
Yeah, to put them on where you would love to see it, where you wished you could have started, maybe.
I love that
or
question.
where you want your children to start.
You know, the only way that I could help the Black community, the only way that I could take the reins and really make changes in a community, I couldn't just do it with the Black community. It would definitely have to start in the white community. Because whenever you look at so many reasons why the Black community is oppressed, why all the things that are going on in the Black communities, as far as like violence, the reason that, you know, if you're going to be real about it and like really look into stuff and really pay attention to the people that not just run our country, but run our country and represent everything that makes us Americans, you know, you have to start. The only reason there is so much, the only reason I feel like, you know, I speak up because I know that there's another woman that might look like me that doesn't have the voice, the power, you know, it takes a lot for me to speak up about something that I believe in. So it's like, for me, it's hard to think that, for me to just think that it's the Black community's fault that the Black community is held back. You know, whenever it started with the whole system, it started, you know, it's Black History Month, you know, and more than anything, I'm reading so many Black stories. It was only the 60s, which was not a long time ago, whenever Black people were able to go to school with white people, college, like the Black colleges. I mean, colleges were integrated with Black people in the 60s, like mid 60s. Like, so it's like, for me, it's like,
and not everywhere in the country.
Exactly. So it's like to have those reins and just take them. It's systematic. All of this is a part of a system. It's not just, you know, believing, you know, thinking that I could use my words to inspire, because there are so many people that are stuck within the same system. I can't, I want to quote it so bad. Harriet Tubman, she said, I don't want to be wrong about it, but I'm just going to say it. I could be wrong. I'm not quoting this right off of the back of my hand, but she said, I freed 100 slaves, and I could have freed 100 more if they knew they were slaves. There's so many Black people that still are just like that in the mentality. They're caught up in the system. That's where it's like, you listen to my story. I could have been so easily a part of a system.
Now you do sound like Candace Owens.
Been on, you know, I just could have been a part of a, you know, I could be on government assistance, food stamps. I could get a Social Security check. Like, I've watched my family be. This is a part of a system. That's the first thing. People in my hometown, my friends my age, literally, I had a friend group of 6. I'm the only one that's 22 that don't have kids. I don't have food stamps. I'm not on government assistance, nothing like that. I take care of myself by myself. I know all of my friends that are on housing, SSI, all this other stuff. Like, you know, it's like, and I'm just like, oh my goodness, you get $650 a month and you think that's something. It's like, I spend that in a week sometimes. Like, it's, you know, so just like, it's all a part of a system I was strong enough to not be a part of. But like I said, I can tell my story, and it's hard to think, even being the woman that I am, you know, and to think that I could influence so many other people. My dad, my dad is so intelligent. Like, if you listen to this man speak, he's not an idiot. My dad is smart as hell, and he's in prison. You know, he was in prison for 10 years. He didn't just sit in prison for 10 years. My dad, he's, you know, Muslim. He's very intelligent. He speaks fluent Arabic. You know, he's just this really intelligent person that just wasn't given, that didn't know how to think outside of the circumstances that he was brought up about, you know, and it just takes that. It takes being institutionalized, you know, locking kids up young. You think if you pay attention, how young do they start locking up men of color? You look at our prison systems, they're full of Black men, you know, so it's like, it's hard for me to think that I could take the reins of a whole group of people that have been suppressed for so long and think that I could just snap, because it has to start with the people that's, you know, the people that, where this all started has to be taken accountability for too. And they're even trying to take Black history out of school systems now. So we're only going backwards.
So do you think, in your opinion, that the best way for the Black community to get out from under this I mean, we can say oppression, right? We could say that because I don't think you could use any other word probably, unless you can think of a better one. Again, you're way smarter than me. So if you've got a better adjective, let me know. But is for the Black community to start rejecting those things you just laid out? I mean, it's such a difficult. I know I did not ask you a fair question. I know it's not a fair question.
I think sometimes when you grow up in a certain, like I said, I went to school with the white kids. So I was actually able to see the things that they were able to have. You know, I went to private school. They pulled up in Range Rovers and Bentleys. I was able to fantasize about things that I could see my friends have and know that I'm like, oh, what is going to stop me from having these things? Not everybody's able to, especially in Fort Smith. You know, there's not been a lot of Black kids still to go through Trinity Junior High School, you know? And so it's just like, first, I don't know. That is a tough question. Like to think, I mean, I don't know. Cause it's like, you can't just stop rejecting a system that built you. You can't just stop turning these things away. It's not easy. Yeah, it's not easy. Overnight. But I think it's, like I said, the difference between Black women and everybody else is that we lack the opportunities. So it's like we first have to start giving Black people opportunities in the same position and you know, give them the same equity and respect that you are born with because of the color of your skin. The same trust that you are born with because of the color of your skin, you know? And until we start giving them these opportunities, this equity, this respect, you know, this recognition that is already, you know, I'm fighting for it in one industry. I can't imagine if I was fighting the whole world about it, you know? So just and whenever we talk about things like that, that's the whole world. We're talking about a whole system. We're talking about, like, it's difficult. And I can't do it by myself. No. But, you know, what I can do in my industry, in this industry that I do love, I feel like I can definitely make a difference.
You can. Yeah. And I think that's all anybody can do is pick where they can have the biggest influence, right? If you were to say, I'm not going to mess with the Western industry anymore, and I'm just going to try to talk to the whole world, it's probably not going to work as well, right? So what you need is eclectic people in different groups who all have the same goal, right? It's kind of like how you structure companies, right? You've got people in different areas of the company that all work towards the bigger goal, and you have to have that, right? Yeah. You're working in this one, and you chose the one that you wanted to be in. There's other people and others that maybe could do the same, and the next thing you know, you have a grassroots thing that takes over and flowers, and then maybe that can do it.
You know, I think some people, you know, it is so hard because it's hard to, you know, find that area of like, you know, where does my voice fit? Where do I speak up? What is my purpose? And I feel like for some people that is so hard, you know, but for me, I was young when I was able to find that because someone introduced me to it, you know? And so it's hard to always just be like, you know, I don't know, you know, like to know what you need to do, to know when to speak up or what to say or to have the words. And I don't always have the words. I don't know what to say sometimes. You know, I'm just winging it a lot of the time, I feel like, in life. Like, are we not just all winging it a little bit?
Just winging it.
But for me, like, speaking up, for me, the reason that I do speak up, the reason that I use my voice is because it's something I love. It was so much more than just picking, like, oh, this is something I want to talk about. But, you know, so it's like, for me, this industry is something that I love. And it's like, for me, I used to think that I needed to have a seat at the table when I was in the drill team, you know, being rejected by 19 women. That's hard. Like, because whenever you find out about things, I distance myself from people if I don't know what's going on. So it's just like, I started realizing, like, you don't need to ask to have a seat at somebody's table. And so many people, like, when you're rejected in an industry or you're rejected by something and you don't know what avenue to take, you don't know where to go. And like, so it's like, I created my own table, you know, and they're coming to my table. I'm not going to nobody's table. I'm not asking to sit at nobody's table. You know, people, you know, I'm not asking for a chair at your table. You can come sit at my table and I'll teach you the proper etiquette you're going to use when you're sitting at my table, but I'm not going to ask for a seat at your table. I don't need one, you know. And it's like, until people realize that they don't need people to get to where they're trying to go. Like, if you believe in something, if you know, I don't agree with everything Candace Owens says. You know, I don't keep up with anything that she says really too much to an extent, but I can respect people that can, you know, have their opinion and believe in something and stand on it. Yeah. And I can respect them. I'm not going to disrespect you because of it. Like, what, you know, so it's just like, more than anything, she found what she believed in, what she loves, and what she stands for, and that's who she is. And I feel like, you know, when people are able to do that, that's why she gets all the criticism. That's why there's the backlash, because people don't understand that. They don't understand how the hell I can be all of this woman. They cannot even comprehend why I can think like this, why I can talk like this, why I feel like I have the nerve to speak up about diversity and inclusion. You can't even, because you could never do it. You know, and they see these things that they lack within themselves and me and get jealous and become, oh, you feel attacked because I'm this person. You feel attacked because I'm confident in myself.
Isn't it like the greatest compliment, though, if you really think about it?
I feel like, oh my goodness. You know, that's where I'm like, if it built me, like when I say like all the things that I went through, people tearing me down, going through race, like it helped. Y'all added fuel to the fire. I knew I was doing something right because you were talking about me. Whether it was good or bad, you were talking about me. You had my name in your mouth, which let me know I needed to keep doing something to make you talk about me, you know, and you're still talking about me.
Yeah.
So it's just like more than anything, it's just, you know, be strong enough, you know, and don't be scared to use your voice, you know, and if you're scared, if you don't take yourself serious and the things that you believe serious, ain't nobody else going to take you serious. But, you know, I feel like for quite some time, I've been speaking up about the things that I speak up about now for a long time. But for so long, maybe people didn't take me as serious, you know, when I'm talking about these things until they're like, dang, she still ain't shut up. You know, she's still talking about these same things. And it's like, instead of, you know, like, I'm not going to ask you for respect. You're either going to treat me with respect or you won't be around me. You're not someone I'm going to interact with. But, you know, it's like, I still don't go away. I'm still here, you know, whereas you think I would have been done already. I'm still going to that next level. You're still having to pay attention to me because I'm right in front of you.
You know, it's interesting, and I didn't know if I'd bring this up or not, but I was talking to my sister, and my sister's been in the NFR 6 times now, and I sent her that video because Riley sent it to me where you were calling out that organization, Cavenders, and she called me and for 45 minutes told me about all the stuff that she felt that she had to deal with just being a woman in the industry. And she's like, all these women, they won't speak up against it, but here's all the things that I went through with these brands just as a woman. I couldn't imagine if I was a woman of color on top of it. And she's like, it's hard enough being a woman and people won't talk about it. Some people didn't experience, they won't recognize it, but here's what I went through. And I've got NFR round buckles. I won the average at the NFR. I'm a $1 million cowgirl before the age of 30. And I have people in this industry who put their thumb on me because I'm a girl. And she is, I mean, my sister is not the type. I mean, she's as red blood as Candace Owens, but she's like, it's happening to me. I couldn't imagine being her going through this.
Exactly. And it's a big thing, especially with Cavenders. You know, I'd had someone that had seen it, used to work on there, tried to get a job with their marketing team, like before they allowed women to be on their team. And she was a woman, and that's what she said. She was like, there's deep problems with them. She's like, I remember whenever they told me that they just weren't ready to have a woman on their team yet, you know? And that's just, that's why I'm like, when I speak up, I'm a voice for so many. Yes, I'm a voice for women of color, but I'm a voice for so many women just speaking up in general. And that was something that I had to pay attention to here recently too. Whenever I'm speaking up about diversity, I had a lot of white women message me and they were like, hey, when you're speaking up about diversity, can you also mention size? Whenever I go on these Western brands page, I don't see a woman that looks like me as far as the way that I'm built. You know, diversity is so much deeper than the skin. It's, you know, about the characteristics, the kind of people that we would even consider should be a cowgirl or shouldn't be cowgirl, you know, rather just because of their body type, you know, and it's a huge thing. And it's like, as long as we continue to let men control this narrative in this industry, or men be the reason that you keep your mouth shut and don't say anything, and you continue to allow people to mute you, we won't get anywhere, you know, because that's what so many there are. I mean, I can't imagine being a woman that is, I mean, I'm not a woman that's intimidated by men. I played football in high school. I was a defensive end, right tackle, middle linebacker. You know, I'm gonna get
with that.
So I'm not too intimidated by men. I used to go toe to toe with my head coach. It excited me. So
that doesn't surprise me now that I know you.
So whenever it's like, you know, it's like some women, I can't imagine being in a position where if I wasn't this loud already, or if I wasn't this person already, having to speak up to a man, I could see where it would be very intimidating, but it's just like, that's where it's a level of respect. And to me, it's like, if you won't even hear me, if you won't let me speak, you don't want to hear my voice, you don't respect me, so it's like, when are you going to stop putting yourself in rooms and around people and electing people to be chairman of this and that and directors of these brands that don't even respect you or your voice, so it's like, it's hard for me. It's like if you allow people to mute you, and you continue to allow it to be, you're allowing it to be that problem for the next woman. How do I continue to feel sorry for people that can't even use their voice to speak up for themselves? You have to. That's what you have it for. You have to be, and people always, I'm sure they wonder, they're like, how in the heck does she have still working with these brands? She's like this crazy black girl that's attacking people all the time because she speaks up about diversity. Like, I'm sure they don't want to work with her, and for some of the brands that I work with, or even still in cahoots with it, get invited to their stuff. That's the exact reason they work with me, because they're like, I love someone that can speak up and be, and it's like, use your voice, you have it for a reason. Equality throughout the whole industry for men and women is, in general, is such a big thing that needs to be addressed, that I talk about that, like, because we have our first women ropers, like, that are just now getting able to go compete in women being able to go to the NFR and not just barrel race. Like, come on now. It's like, it shows that as a whole industry, there's that lack of respect with men and women and what men think women can and can't do. And, as long as women, because I'm going to say we, because I'm not letting them limit me at all, but as long as, women allow people to limit them and allow men in whatever industry to make them think that they can't do it, that's as long as they're going to continue to be held back.
Yeah. Boom. You could almost drop the mic right there. That was awesome. And I agree. And, that's one of the things we do at this show that people hate us for, is that everybody gets a seat at this table if they got a reason to be here. And we'll touch every single topic that everybody else won't. Yeah. And we catch flack for it. But everything you're saying is so valuable. It doesn't matter if somebody doesn't agree with a word that you're saying. Even if I didn't agree with anything you're saying, you deserve to say it. And we should listen, because you're smart as shit and you're talking about really important things. And if people want to silence you for any reason, your gender, your race, the color of car you drive, then that person needs to be corrected. Because then they're just breeding another one of those when they go and have their kids. And then that continues. And to put it in perspective for people, how many people's mom and daddy had a ranch or grew up in the Western world? You're wearing those boots, you're wearing the hat, and you're probably getting on a horse, you're probably rodeoing, generation after generation of people rodeoing. But it started with one, right? And so it starts with that. That could be right now. Yeah. You could start here and drop this whole narrative like it never existed, and you're not going to see the full fruit of that. I'm not going to. We'll be gone. But in a few generations, this could never be a conversation again.
In a few generations, I hope this isn't even a conversation.
It shouldn't be.
Dang it, Ja'Dayia just, hit it right on the no. And maybe, I don't know. That's I'll stop talking about diversity whenever, the Western industry, I feel like, is at the point where it's like, oh my goodness, it's not something I have to talk about anymore. So I don't know. I feel like I've always known my voice was important. I feel like that's another thing, my mom, made important to me, is that, anything that I had to say mattered. She always stood up for me, always, whenever I needed her, anytime, even if I was the problem, my mom was there to stand up for me. And she always just kind of reminded me, like, if you have something to say it. I grew up off of the term, a closed mouth don't get fed, so I'm going to speak up, and I feel like it's just important to do. It's really important, because then you raise another young woman. I'm planning to have kids one day. I'm going to raise kids that are going to speak up for themselves. And if they want something, they're going to know hard work and dedication and value things, and they'll know what it takes to get there. And I feel like, it's those kind of people you have to, I feel like, you raise what you are, and I feel like if you're someone that feel like you can't speak up or have your opinion, then you're going to raise a kid that's just like that. And then, like you said, it's generations of people who feel like that their voice does not matter and it's not important enough and what they're doing isn't important enough. And I feel like that's kind of the reason that I was able to set myself apart from all the statistics and where I should be or the person I should be, is because I recognized that what I had to say and the things that I was doing were important. I recognized they were important because people people were trying to get me to quit them. They were talking badly about me. You know, I dealt with racism while I was doing some of the things that I loved and was just having fun doing. So I think, you know, if anybody's trying to stop you from doing something that you want to do, that should be another reason for you to, you know, continue to go forward and persevere, because, you know, you're doing it for a reason. It's upsetting someone for a reason. So, you know, just be you.
Hell yeah. Well, and some of the greatest causes throughout the entire history of the world were spurred by somebody trying to stop somebody from being who they are.
Mm-hmm.
And the people who are trying to oppress or trying to stop that always lose in the end.
Mm-hmm.
So that'll be the same thing. The amazing thing about the Western industry is it's the best place for it, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not like the NBA. It's like, hey, dude, if you're 5'0" with a little pot belly, you ain't playing in the NBA, right? You know, if you weigh 110 pounds, you're not receiving a football in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a spot for everybody in the Western industry.
Yeah.
No matter who you are, what you are, color, creed, it doesn't matter. There's a spot here. There's a seat for everybody that you could fit into. And what better place than here, right?
We just got to make sure that everybody feels that way. You know, we got to make sure that our industry is welcoming to people.
Yeah.
I feel like that's more than anything. That's what my go-to is, just to make sure that, you know, I'm introducing, you know, I have a nonprofit and I'm introducing urban kids to horses and pigs and goats and sheep. And I'm just like, I have to make sure that I'm even introducing them to something that they'd want to be part of, because is this industry even ready to invite them or make them feel welcome, you know? So
Absolutely. And, you know, you'll have people who will say certain things like, well, you know, Shad Mayfield's a world champion. Fred Whitfield has 8 gold buckles, but he wrote a book about this stuff. Mm-hmm. Did you read 8 Gold Buckles Don't Lie? Have you read that?
No, I
You should
didn't
read it. From Fred Whitfield. It's a great book. And he talks about some stuff that are probably, I mean, they would resonate with you, but his outlook on it in that book, at least, you know, as a black cowboy, was really awesome. Mm-hmm. And yes, he got those 8 buckles, but he also felt what you feel.
Mm-hmm.
Shouldn't feel that way if you have 8 gold buckles.
You know, you think you'd at least earn some type of respect.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's got all the respect in the world as a competitor. I mean, there's nobody you can talk to in the rodeo world. If you say who are the top 5 greatest calf ropers, he's going to be on that list. But it's a fight. And I hate the idea of anybody having to fight tooth and nail just to get to that door. Mm-hmm. You got to fight tooth and nail to become somebody.
Yeah.
You shouldn't have to fight tooth and nail to get to the point where you can even start that conversation.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
And
I don't know what
I feel
that
like
looks
for
like,
me, that's kind of how it is. It's like, I want to, like I said, I wanted to just focus on rodeo queening a long time ago, but I can't because I can't go to these competitions. And even, you know, I remember just hearing, they're like, oh my goodness, like, I just don't know when there will be the first Black Miss Rodeo America. You know, we don't know, because like, will these sponsors even want to sponsor Miss Rodeo America if you know, like, this is conversations I'm hearing adult women have, you know, like, I'm just like, what? Like, they're like, oh, you know, I'm talking about wearing my natural hair at a pageant. Like, oh, you know, I don't think you should do that. Like, I really don't consider that. I don't think your hair would be, you know, what's considered rodeo queen hair. So it's just like, you know, and so for me, it's like, dang, like, if I can't even go in these pageants and be a little bit of myself, like, what am I doing? You know, so it's like, for me, it's become like this mission, like, I got to make sure that the people that, you know, sponsor these pageants and allow these organizations to even be organizations and things are even going to respect me in general. And then I can try to rodeo queen after I've stepped on everybody's toes and made everybody feel a type of way about themselves, because I'm speaking up about, you know, the color of my skin. That's it.
Yeah, but it's one of those things, if not you, who, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You have to say that.
Yeah. You know, I'll just leave that there. Yeah.
Well, I think we probably had one of the most meaningful conversations about diversity in the Western industry that anybody will probably ever hear. Mm-hmm. You know, and certainly everybody who needs to hear it will. Good, bad, or indifferent. I'm so thankful we had it. But now I want to let go of that for a second and talk about what some of your personal goals are. Because you knocked that out of the park. Again, I don't want to talk about it anymore because my ego hurts because you make me feel stupid.
Stop.
Because you're so smart. But what are some of your personal goals and your aspirations for your future? I mean, you're 22 years old.
Right.
I never would have guessed that.
Yeah. So. Oh my gosh. Like, goals, I don't even know. Like, because sometimes, like I said, I'm just swinging it sometimes. You know, I think I'm doing this, and then like 2 weeks later I'm doing this. You know, I think I'm moving here, and then I have no idea, but I can honestly say, like, some of the things that, one of my biggest goals right now, I feel like what's standing in my way is college. I'm so ready to be done. I can't wait to graduate. I'm going to definitely take a year off, but if I still decide to go to law school, I'm definitely planning on going to law school, but it's just like, I think I need time. I've been going to school since I was like in kindergarten and I have not stopped, and I'm just tired of it. But I want to see what I can do, to continue ag for kids. It's become my baby, and it's so important to me that, I had to go my senior year of high school. I moved to a smaller town, about 20 minutes outside of my hometown, because I wanted to do ag FFA and 4-H. And in my hometown, we're like the second largest city in Arkansas, and we don't even have ag FFA or 4-H at any of our schools. We have like 5 junior high schools. So ag for kids was my way of like introducing my hometown to like having events in the inner cities and piquing kids' interests about different animals and things like that. And so I actually have 2 kid books coming out, and they're ag books, and yeah, I'll just put that there. And so, yeah, they're agricultural kids books, that represent diversity, so kids can see themselves doing these things. And I feel like that's such a big reason that there is, for me in urban cities and communities, like, kids don't get into farming. And I want to show kids, through ag for kids, that they can even have farms in their backyards. It's not that you have to grow up on 10 acres and have a mule to be able to be a part of something or want to grow something or want to learn how to do something. And I feel like, like I said, horses taught me so much in our, hard work and all these different things that make me who I am. I learned from this industry, from these animals. And I'm like, if I could, give kids something else to do, give kids a reason to, there's a lot of, I pay attention to things because I'm the oldest of 6 and the youngest is 2. And I have 2 sisters in elementary school, junior high, and high school. So for me, it's like I'm hearing all the things. And, these kids are 10 and 11 years old smoking vapes and nicotine and just different things. And like, so for me, it's like, what better time than now for my hometown to try to introduce something for kids to have to do, give them a reason, to have something to do. And I love social media, and I think it's so important. But I also think that, kids need to have something, to learn hard work and dedication and things. And I don't know. I just feel like the ag industry is the perfect way to teach them.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's one thing you've mentioned through this entire thing is how important hard work is and determination. And that's one of the scary things about like the next generation that's coming up is like, It's scary. Like they don't have that.
Yeah. It scares me what it could. And that's why I feel like for me, it's ag for kids. That's like our mission is to bring farming and all this stuff to backyards, and for kids to know how easy it is to have access to these animals. And, you have 2 chickens in your backyard. You can have eggs, just teaching kids the basic things that, they're not learning in school. I didn't remember ever learning that in my public schools in Fort Smith. Mm-hmm. But, it's just teaching kids these simple little things, because to me, it's like if all of our kids are on TikTok and on Instagram and on social media, and there's new apps being made and they're addicted to these video games, like, who the hell is going to be feeding America?
I mean, it's
like, I have no idea.
Big concern.
So it's just like, I don't know. It's important to me. It's important that kids know ag for me.
I agree. Well, and that's another check on the list of why you're so awesome. And I hope it all goes exactly the way you want it to. And I mean, you're young, you've got a bright future, and you're saying a lot of really amazing things. And I think your message is going to continue to reach a lot of people. Mm-hmm. And I hope you never get discouraged from it. Mm-hmm. Until you can just say, well, I've done my job here. I hope you never get discouraged and you keep speaking up for yourself and everybody, because you probably don't realize how many people are relying on your message. Mm-hmm. So
even the ones that don't want to hear it. They're listening. They are listening. They've been watching me. I'm like, girl, you don't even like me. Why are you watching me?
You got a big TikTok. Yeah.
Like, they are listening. And I pay attention to that, because you're listening for a reason. You don't want to hear what I have to say, but you are listening to it, so I must be saying something good.
Boom. Keep saying it, girl. All right. Well, thank you for coming.
Thank you. You guys were awesome.
This has been The Gauge, hosted by me, Chance Conrado, produced and edited by our guy, Ty Yeager. Shout out to the executive producers, Dustin Pointer and Cody Denton. Marketing and content produced by Riley Chone. Make sure to rate and review this podcast, as well as follow The Gauge on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And make sure to subscribe to The Gauge wherever you get your podcasts. We'll see you guys next time.